Testament lesson today is another of the stories from the patriarchs from the book of Genesis. This one is the story about Rebekah and her twin boys, Jacob and Esau. Listen now for the word of the Lord in Genesis 25. These are the descendants of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean of Padan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his prayer, and his wife Rebekah conceived. The children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is to be this way, why do I live?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be the stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger." When her time to give birth was at hand, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body, like a hairy mantle. So they named him Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand gripping Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, living in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he was fond of game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished." Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I am about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and he rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. And our New Testament lesson comes from the Gospel according to St. Matthew, 13th chapter, verses 1 through 9 and 18 through 23. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many, many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil, and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen." Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, in another 30. May the Lord add his blessing to this reading of his holy word. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in God's sight, for he truly is our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Back a few years ago, before broadcasting became a reference to radio and television, it used to be the way we described how seeds were planted. Handfuls of seed were scattered or broadcast as the sower walked up and down the rows of the field. For countless generations, this was the way that farmers planted their seed. The people who gathered around Jesus to hear the stories that he told were familiar with this method of planting. They had seen it done. They had done it themselves. So Jesus takes this familiar action and he uses it as a conversation starter. He takes a familiar action trying to get the crowd to see the world in a new way. And he's also trying to get us to see the world in a new way. This story that Jesus tells of the sower and the soil is familiar. We have heard it before. Some seed falls on the path, the hard-packed track that the farmer has walked time and again through the field. That seed cannot even penetrate the ground. Some seed falls among the rocks that are, it seems, everywhere. So the seed in the rocky soil cannot take really deep root. Some seed falls where thorns and weeds are prone to grow. And these weeds choke out the good seedlings. The sowers all know that these things happen. And that much of their seed goes to waste. So when they broadcast, they throw out lots of extra seed. It's too bad that so much gets wasted. But after all, that's the way life is. Only some of the seed falls in good, rich soil and grows up tall and straight and yields an abundant harvest. The sowers know that this does happen too, although they don't exactly know why. It's a mystery, and yet they're glad and they rejoice when the harvest comes and give thanks to God for his mercy. They are just happy to have enough to eat. Let me tell you another story. It concerns a young anthropologist named Connie who was working among the Aborigines in Australia. The community in which she worked had a rich tradition of storytelling. Everyone in that community would gather at night, young and old, and a story would be told, and then another story, and then another. Connie felt very privileged she was asked to join the group. The first story told that evening was about one of the animal ancestors of the community and its adventures at the beginning of time. The story was overflowing with rich detail and action and imagery and color. At the end of the story, Patty was delighted to have heard it. And she says, "May I ask a question? What does it mean?" All eyes turned toward her. The elder of the community looked at her very gravely and said, "That is the one question that you may not ask." A long time passed before she was invited again because she had asked the wrong question. What does it mean? That may have been the wrong question for the disciples to ask about the story of the sower and the seed. It may be the wrong question for us to ask about that story or any of the stories that Jesus tells. What does it mean? It's the wrong question if we think that by having an answer given to us, we can somehow get a handle on the story, make it ours, domesticate it, make it safe for us. The stories Jesus tells, the parables, are not subject to our control. They are the Word of God, too hot to handle. Jesus tells these stories not so that we can ask questions about them and figure them out. No, he tells these stories so that they might make us think. They might even make us uncomfortable. He wants the stories to ask questions of us so that we might be transformed by them. Today's story of the broadcasting of the seed, with details so familiar to us, Jesus seems to be asking us a question. What kind of soil are you? The trick is that from moment to moment, any of us can be any of the four soils that Jesus describes. What kind of soil am I? Sometimes my mind is conventional and fixed. It's restrained by my habits. The crust of custom is hard and remains unbroken. I avoid the pain of new ideas and new commitments. My conventional mind obstructs even the goodwill of God. I am a path made hard by many feet, where the seed falls in vain, only for the birds to carry it off. What kind of soil am I? Sometimes my mind is pebbly and shallow. There's emotion, but no action. Indulgence, but no obligation. My mind is eager, but it's unstable. Nothing grows there for very long. The shallow soil of sentimentality and the rocks of cynicism prevent roots from growing deeply. And the sunlight of reality burns away the foliage, for in me there is no depth, no place to reach the rich, moist soil. What kind of soil am I? Sometimes my mind is preoccupied, absorbed by the cares of the world, cluttered, incapable of observation, reflection, or prayer. Hectic activity and the tumult of events leave me without mental seriousness, and I am unable to engage in sustained thought. The deepest powers of my nature are inhibited. The growth that could be is choked off, strangled, by the weeds of 100 different species. The conventional mind, the shallow mind, the preoccupied mind. At times I ask myself, how can I be more than one of these? More than a hard-beaten path? What are the stones that prevent me from having depth? Where are the weeds in me that threaten to choke out whatever grows? But mercifully, Jesus knows that there are times in me when I am none of these. I am instead fertile, welcoming soil that accepts the scattered seed and produces a crop 60, 30, 100-fold. Rich soil that brings forth a bountiful crop of grain. When this happens, I rejoice. But I also remember. I remember, you see, that the seed that is sprouting in me always comes by being broadcast, not through my actions or my will, but through the mercy and grace of God. The sower, especially when I open myself to God's gift of Jesus Christ. You see, the good news is that God's love for us is broadcast unconditionally, unsparingly, even extravagantly. God's love as seed may fall when we are not ready, when we are not perfect, when we are not cultivated. We may not exhibit the optimum growing environment all the time. We may be poor soil, not receptive to that seed. We may have to overcome tremendous barriers in order to encourage growth. Some of us will struggle in order to grow. Yet, the seed is spread in and on us unconditionally. All God asks for is an open heart, a willing soul, a will to listen to the words of our Creator. We are all receptacles waiting for the seed in us to grow regardless of our soil. It may not happen right away. It may be a long journey. It may be one that is buffeted by winds of change or the trials of life or the tears of sorrow. But we have God's promise not to abandon us. God's promise to stand with us in every circumstance. God's promise to watch over us through the wind, the rain, the hail, and the drought that threaten the frail shoots of our faith, so that we will emerge straight and strong on the other side, and so that someday we will sow seed of our own. There is a story of an English traveler that so loved the wild flowers that grew at the sides of the lanes and highways and fields in England, that whenever he traveled abroad, he would fill his pockets with those seeds and scatter them broadcast everywhere he went. It wasn't long before the beauty of his homeland greeted him in countries the world over. And so it is with us and the love of God. Almost every day we live, there are opportunities for us to sow the seeds of God's love in some other heart. It may be a simple word, or a kindly act, or a line in a letter that we write, or a prayer that we offer. but the seed is sown and another life is blessed. Regardless of the kind of soil we may be today or tomorrow or next week, we can hold on to the seed planted in us because we know the promises of God's love. One day we will bloom. One day we will produce a good harvest. One day we will become the seed that falls on the hard or rich ground of another. The seed that flowers and gives hope to another person. We will, with God's love and God's grace. Thanks be to God. Amen.